I never imagined that the money my father left me would become the beginning of the darkest chapter of my life. My father died after a long illness. Before his death, he always told me that whatever he left behind should be used wisely. He wanted me to finish my education, build a business, and make sure my son never struggled the way he had struggled. When his affairs were finally settled, I received almost 35 million naira in cash. To everyone else, it was a fortune. To me, it was my father's final gift. My husband knew everything. He knew when the inheritance was being processed. He knew how much I received. He even knew where I kept the money. At first, he celebrated with me. Then one evening, he asked what I planned to do with it. I told him I wanted to buy a land, get a car, register for my master's degree, and invest the remaining money into my business. He stared at me. Then he asked, "So where do I come in as your husband?" I thought he was joking. "What do you mean? What do I get?" I couldn't answer. The money belonged to me, but more importantly, it belonged to the memory of my father. I told him I wanted to use it responsibly. He became angry. That night, he barely spoke to me. After that, he changed. He became cold. He watched me whenever I discussed my plans. Then one night, he woke me up. The room was dark. He was sitting beside me. "I didn't know you were this stupid," he said. I sat up. He told me that a woman with almost 35 million naira had no reason to keep the money away from my husband. I asked him why should I surrender my father's inheritance simply because he was my husband. His face changed again. The argument became heated. He accused me of disrespecting him. Then he said, "Prepare yourself for whatever happens next." He told me he would bring another woman into our home, a woman who would listen to him, a woman who would respect him. I cried that night, not because of the money, because I suddenly realized that the man I had married was no longer the man I thought I knew. A few days later, his parents arrived without warning. They sat in my living room and pressured me for hours. They told me that a good wife must submit to her husband. They demanded that I transfer the inheritance to him. My mother-in-law even told me she had been begging her son not to marry another woman because she believed I would eventually become obedient. I felt surrendered. So I nodded. "Okay, I will transfer the money tomorrow." That was the last time they saw me in that house as their daughter-in-law. That evening, I carried my baby downstairs and told my husband I wanted to buy something. Instead, I went to my friend's house. I switched off my phone. 2 days later, my mother found me. She stayed with my son while I returned to work. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. About a month later, I rented an apartment. Then I went back to my husband's house while he was at work. I packed all my belongings. I packed my son's things. Then I looked around the house. That was when I realized something painful. I had bought almost everything: the bed, the television, the refrigerator, the generator, the kitchen appliances, the furniture, even things I had forgotten about. I had been paying for them through deductions from my salary. My husband earned more than I did, yet I had been carrying much more of the burden. I left with what belonged to me. I thought that was the end. I was wrong. 2 days later, the police came to my workplace. My husband had reported me for stealing his property. I was taken into the station. My boss came with me. My husband stood there confidently, claiming everything I had taken belonged to him. Then my colleague arrived with my cooperative savings record. Every purchase was documented. Every deduction came from my salary. The accusations collapsed, but something happened afterward that I never expected. My husband called me that night. He wasn't angry anymore. He was crying. He begged me to return. He said he had made a terrible mistake. He said he never truly wanted another woman. He said he had only threatened me because he wanted me to become submissive. I didn't answer. The next morning, I received another call. It was from my mother. Her voice was trembling. She told me that my father-in-law had collapsed after the family learned about a police case. He had been ashamed of what had happened. He kept saying that their family had destroyed their own home. A few days later, he died. I was devastated. He had pressured me. He had taken the son's side, but never wanted him dead. At the funeral, my mother-in-law looked completely broken. She came to me and held my hands. Then she whispered, "Please forgive us." I couldn't speak. I wanted to be angry, but I could feel was sorrow. The house that once held laughter had become a place of regret. My husband later admitted that he had listened to people who told him that a submissive wife would surrender everything to her husband. He regretted believing them, but regret came too late. By then, the trust between us was gone. I filed for divorce. We went to court. Every hearing brought back memories, the arguments, the threats. The night I left, my father, inheritance, his parents, the police station, and the funeral. Sometimes I wondered whether things could have different if my husband had simply respected me. If he had seen my inheritance as my father's final blessings instead of an opportunity. If he had loved me more than he loved control. Maybe our family would be together. Maybe his father would still be alive. Maybe my son would still have a father and mother living under the same roof. Those thoughts still hurt. But I learned something from all of it. Money did not destroy my marriage. Greed did. Pride did. The belief that love means ownership did. My father spent his entire life trying to build something for his children. He never imagined that the money he left behind would bring so much sorrow. I still have the inheritance. I still have my son. I still have my dreams. But sometimes when I look at my father's photograph, I wish I could sit beside him once more time and tell him everything that happened. I would tell him that I tried to protect what he left me. I would tell him that I lost a marriage. I would tell him that his death left a wound in my heart that money could never heal. And perhaps, most painfully of all, I would tell him that his final gifts became the reason an entire family learned the meaning of regret. I am done with my marriage, but I am not done rebuilding my life. And whenever I remember that night when my husband asked, "What do I get?" I realize now that he had only given me the answer. He had shown me exactly what he valued, and it wasn't me. If you enjoy realistic stories like this, please like and subscribe. And also comment your view if you are in the same shoe with this lady. Thank you.